She Can, we lead with women's stories. We interview women from all over the world and talk about their journey, how they got to where they are today, and of course about their purpose, their jobs, and how they conduct their lives. And it's filled with advice and guidance. I'm really excited to talk to Ginta Gelvan today. Ginta, welcome to She Can. You have been doing branding, PR, and marketing in the fashion, luxury, and entertainment industry for a very long time for big global brands such as Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Hugo Boss, Agent Provocateur, as a global communications and marketing director. And then you co-launched a film distribution and production company called Modern Films, highlighting social issue stories and female voices working on cross-cultural content. You also are the director of 16 Days, 16 Films, an influential film festival raising awareness of gender-based violence in partnership with the UN, the Gina Davis Institute, and many more. And so you really are a leader in leveraging film for cultural impact and advocacy. So tell us a little bit more about your journey and how you got to this point where you really are leading with women's stories and trying to change the cultural narrative in different ways through film.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me and letting me speak. I really appreciate it. I love what you do, and I think it's so important to listen to women's stories, and each of them is really important. My story really I'll start at the beginning because I think it just explains why I got to where I got at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I come from an immigration family. I was born in Latvia, and my mom was the manager of a philharmonic orchestra. My father was a ballet dancer, and we left when I was 2 years old and immigrated into freedom through Vienna to Rome to then New York, where my father was dancing at the American Ballet Theater. Okay. Then we moved to Berlin, where I grew up. Okay. And I really grew up in the world of ballet, culture, arts. Every day after school, I was taking ballet lessons. Every evening, I was in the opera watching my dad or being on stage myself. Late nights in restaurants, because at that time, my parents didn't do babysitters, or, it just didn't. And I was just part of their life, and it was wonderful. And then I think with being given that sort of opportunity of being raised in the Western world, if you like, I felt the urge to do a lot more and keep traveling and doing. So I moved to Paris and New York and studied at Parsons School of Design and graduated there, and went into the world of fashion. And that's how it really started. I started with Calvin Klein in New York, which was, during the famous Kate Moss campaigns and stuff.
Heydays.
Exactly, the heydays. Oh my God, the intensity, the drama, all of the fashion stuff is so true. I then moved to Milan and worked for Hugo Boss and Tommy Hilfiger there. Amazing years with Hugo Boss in Italy, and just the culture and the lifestyle. It was wonderful. I then moved again. I keep like a gypsy moving around, and moved to Amsterdam, where my son was born. And I worked for many years for Tommy Hilfiger with a lot of travel involved, and ended up in London, where I was global comms and marketing director for Agent Provocateur for many years. And it was wonderful and intense and a lot of drama, and you needed really a sense of humor to get through it, because at the end of the day, I tried to repeat, we're only trying to sell knickers here and not saving the world. And, everything should be a little bit more in perspective. So I always knew at some point I wanted to change industries and do something different. I wasn't quite sure yet what that would be. And then I think it just came very naturally. Obviously, the company got sold, and I was looking for something new. I think, also quite frustrated and disappointed by the corporate world. I was a little bit infuriated that there was an army of women working in the fashion business, but at the very top, they were all men. And And I wanted to do something different. So I've worked with so many film directors and produced so many shoots and videos that the transition into film was very organic and very natural, really. And I thought, so we co-launched Modern Films, and the idea was really to give female filmmakers a bit more space and social issues-driven space, independent films, a little bit more space. And I think the first film we launched at the London Film Festival was with Cate Blanchett, and it was actually the night the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke out. And I really felt we're onto something, and I just wanted to do more in that space. And after we launched the film, The Rape of Recy Taylor, which is sort of a haunting documentary about the 1940s in Alabama, of a Black woman who was gang raped by a white man. And then she had the courage to speak out and tell her truth after what happened, even though she was threatened, with death threats and etc. So Rosa Parks was actually one of them who led her case. So after that, with my co-founder, we came up with 16 Days, 16 Films. And which is a short film festival to raise awareness on violence against women. And I think so my journey was really from sort of ballet, culture, arts to fashion to film to being purpose driven. And I think that's where then all of a sudden sort of found my space.
Yeah, Ginta, I can see that, and it's very impressive. Now, I'm wondering how do you feel that you're now in this space where you have a big purpose, a big vision? You're making space for women's stories, the uncomfortable ones, especially, to change our cultural narrative, to talk about the things we need to talk about, to highlight the areas where we still need to bring about change. How do you feel about that now? How do you feel you stepped into that power? How did you learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable stories?
It's a journey. There's every year, frankly, there's still a moment. It's uncomfortable for everyone. It's uncomfortable for me as well. I learn every year from the stories that are being told by women. We get films we started in the UK and Ireland, went into France, Italy, US, Mexico, Australia, this year, Argentina and Nigeria. We get stories from all these countries, and they're very varied. So you've got topics. It's really not just, as some people might think, violence, physical violence. There's emotional violence. There's just gender discrimination, the gender pay gap. There is FGM. There is stories about child marriage. There are stories about period poverty. There are all these things that every year I learn myself, and it's a learning curve. And I feel also, but I feel the change I feel is when you start talking about it, once you start sharing. And I think the two missions we have with 16 Days, 16 Films is one, to raise awareness on those issues of gender-based violence, obviously, and create conversations through the power of film.
Yeah.
But it's also giving female filmmakers a safe space to tell their stories, to tell other women's stories where they feel they can say what it is. And so I think it's so incredibly wonderful and rewarding when you see that somebody as well who has nothing to do with that industry watches that film, and those few minutes has an impact on them, and that might change their mind on something and they want to do something about it. So I think that it's and they are uncomfortable, conversations sometimes, for sure. And hence the fact also that how we work is the committee of choosing the 16 days, or choosing the 16 films who run during the 16 days of global activism, which is November 25th to December 10th, is a large committee and that committee is a mix of film industry, as well as NGOs, so social sector, as we have UN Women, Gina Davis Institute, all these wonderful organizations, UK Says No More, BFI, we all work with them. And so every film is being looked at from those different points of views, is what is the storytelling, but also how is the message addressed? How is the story addressed? Is it working? Is it done correctly, told in a proper way? So hence that's how it works with the different organizations. And then we have a jury again, and they are mixed between filmmakers and social sector, who choose the three winners, and the audience get the chance to win as well. And then we have screenings and things, and that's where we see those conversations and the mind shifts. And I think the most important thing I've seen as well is that you read all these statistics, right? You know that 1 in 3 women will at some point during their life suffer from some kind of violence. And, once you start opening up and talking to your girlfriends and the mothers and the sisters and people, we actually know that so many of us are affected in some shape or form. But it's one thing to know those numbers. The other thing is if you see 30 seconds, 2 minutes of a film, and you put yourself into that person's place for a bit. And I think that sort of shift in mindset and conversation, ultimately, yes, what we want to do is push for cultural change. And I think film is one emotional and educational tool, I believe, that could start doing some of it. And I think we need just to confront it.
I think it's the most powerful medium we have today, because that's how we reach the younger generation as well. Ginta, and thank you for all that. I love what you do, of course, because it resonates deeply with what we do at She Can, because when we don't have the truth on the table, and we can't find solutions when we don't have honesty on the table, and telling these stories is putting the truth on the table to then find solutions. So I think that is a very true thing in politics and in any of our social sort of construct. I'm wondering, what do you feel you bring to the table? What are your qualities that you feel serve you every day in holding that space, in creating that festival and running modern films?
Well, I think I probably deep down have always been a very strong feminist in bubbling up. I felt very strongly about that subject, number one. But I think sort of in terms of qualities, I think resilience as well, just trying to make something work that is tough in a tough space. I like to challenge myself. I've been able to adapt and change through so many spaces and industries and countries, and I thrive with change and challenges, actually. So I feel there's definitely one. There's also, I think, what my friends call like a relentless optimism that I have. I just believe I can try and make a difference. I can change something. I can help, at least in a tiny little bit. It's what you do in your surroundings and what you do on a bigger scale as well. But yeah, I feel, I just believe, even though when it's hard and it doesn't seem it's working or it is taking extra, I just believe that I'm a very positive person. So I feel there's always a way to make it work, and it's worth it. And I think so that. And then obviously there are all these transferable skills, when you worked in different businesses and in comms and marketing. I think all your experiences and skills you've sort of accumulated over the years in different jobs. The wonderful thing is it doesn't stop. It's not like it was just in that space.
Yeah.
You can use it and apply it and transfer it to all kinds of different new adventures you're going through.
Ginta, and I love interviewing you because it's easier to be what you can see. So every person out there who is making a difference or trying to make a difference, and
Yeah.
it doesn't always need to be systemic change. I mean, you are working on systemic change. It's very powerful, but every young person out there can have a purpose and make a difference.
Yeah.
And this is where we need to overcome the apathy of our younger generations, where many of them feel that these problems are too big. We are not going to make a change. And that's not true, because everyone can bring about change, even if it's just changing one other person's life. It's worth it. Ginta, so I'm wondering, what are the challenges? What are the pitfalls in your sort of purpose-driven life? And how do you deal with that?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is the funding raising, when you start doing something. And I'm also very honest. I've been on the other side in corporate companies. I know how it works. Everybody's business budgets are getting cut. The world is in a state that it is right now. It's not difficult. It's not easy to then say, I'm going to put a certain amount into a purpose-driven initiative, although that's exactly when we should do it.
Yeah.
So it's with the state of the world. In fact, that's the moment that more women and girls are vulnerable, more discrimination happens, and women need more help. So that's the moment actually corporations and companies and organizations need to do actually even more than they do. So I think now being on the other side and trying to raise funds, etc., is incredibly challenging
Yeah,
and
I can imagine.
difficult. And you need a lot of resilience and keep going and optimism and just try and try and try and hustling almost, which I didn't have to do before. And now it's like I'm in that position. So I think definitely that. And then like with any sort of new enterprise or business you do, it's the roller coaster, right? It's the insecurities, the up and the downs of not. But I actually feel that challenge, I don't mind as much. I realized that change was a positive for me, that I actually embrace it more, because I think even in corporations and full-time jobs, you might risk losing your job at any time anyway, right now, as the world is. So I don't think anybody feels really secure. But the difference is that you are now putting the love, the sweat, the effort into something you really, truly believe in, that is yours. And I think it's a game changer really in your everyday life and how you approach your professional life.
And you're really owning it, Ginta. So that's, yeah, it comes across. Ginta, I'm wondering if you had to give some top tips to young female filmmakers, what would that be?
Well, I think in general, the tip I gave myself after I started my own new journey in film and purpose-driven thing is to work with nice people.
Mm.
Actually, what like let's try to only work with nice people. That's kind of like where possible. I know that this is not always the case and stuff, but I feel it made a huge difference for me to be with like-minded people that are kind, etc. And actually, you can then, when you put the forces together, do a lot more good than you think. So I think that's the one thing. Try and surround yourself with good people, nice people, because that will make a difference. Another one tip I think is to not be afraid of change, because I've now seen as well is you can change at any moment. So, if you even haven't done a film or anything else in your life and all of a sudden you want to do it, why not? There is no time limit to change industry, careers, mission, purpose, etc. In fact, I think it's probably sometimes the right moment in your life that comes later, where you realize that now your soul and heart needs more purpose and do something different. So it comes quite organically. So I think, yeah, the transferable skills, etc. I think not to be scared. And then I think the last tip is to lead by example. So I feel it, and I see it all the time. The men are like the little men's club and they give each other jobs and favors and things like this. And I wish always, and I tell all the women, we should be doing it more. We need to raise each other. We need to help each other. And I feel when it starts to become a little bit more balanced, that women are in more positions where they can make an impact, I think that will be very powerful. So I believe, don't compete with other women, just help and raise and do more. I think, and we've seen it with films as well. As soon as there is a female director and she starts building the team, all of a sudden it's a lot more balanced between male and female in terms of the crew, the team, etc. And that's really powerful, So I think it's getting women to the top so that they can then, make sure that there's more balance throughout all the way.
Yeah, which obviously resonates deeply with us.
Yes,
Ginta,
exactly.
what are you most proud of? Where do you feel you've brought about most change?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say personally for my life, it's always going to be, my son and building my life here in London and, being a single mom and raising a child and without sort of network and safety network and family close by and stuff. That will always be sort of my personal one achievement. But professionally, actually, to having made that change happily and made it work and builds a film at a festival like 16 Days, 16 Films, who can and helps create change, cultural change, and helps female filmmakers. I think it's so rewarding, and that sort of happy space, I think, for me, between creative project as well as having a meaning and purpose. I think that sort of is my biggest achievement. I found my space.
Ginta, so tell us about your plans, your visions, your goals for the next year or couple of years.
Well, so with 16 Days, 16 Films, obviously the objective is for us to go global. That would be the dream, and we will at some point. But we've been so far very considered in our approach. We want to do country by country because we have local contacts, local organizations. So we want to be thoughtful and considerate how we go about it. But the idea, obviously, is to go global and have all the countries participate and have a lot more activities throughout the year, university screenings, mentorships, screenings, bringing different audiences together and watching these films, meeting the filmmakers, having conversations. I think that will change. And I'd love to do a lot more of that. So I think that's the plan over the next few years, to just grow the festival as much as possible. And then me personally, I see that I'm very passionate in that space. So I think anything that sort of brings purpose and creativity together, and women's issues and stuff, if I can do more in that space and create new ideas, new issues, I'm very happy to explore those options. So yeah, who knows what else happens. I've so many things in this short life so far. So open to see what else happens.
Ginta, I'm so grateful for your time and I'm so grateful for your story. I'm wondering, what do you feel is the important message about your story? What would you like girls to walk away from this story?
I think that I think one is the sisterhood, to be real aware of it and try help each other because we need it. There is not enough out there. So I think helping each other, raising, connecting, lead by example. I think that's the message, and to not be scared, to follow your dreams, to try something new and go for it, for sure. I mean, yes, make even the tiniest impact you can have on your surroundings is a domino effect, I think.
Definitely. Ginta, thank you so much. Thank you so much for owning your story. Thank you so much for creating a vessel where you show others how they can own their stories, for telling all the stories, the uncomfortable ones that of bringing truth to our narrative that need to be on the table to find solutions to bring about more change. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me and for your work you're doing.